Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast here for a Saturday Q&A. Right on time, Jesse. We were not late, but thanks for tuning in. And joining me today are my guys, Tyler and Alex. Tyler, how you doing, man?
I'm trying to think of some way. So Craig in the chat says he's at the gym and listening. So I'm trying to think of a way to completely ruin his focus. So Chiefs draft Treylon Burks and then Calvin Austin in the third round.
Oh, shit. That is cruel, man. That is cruel. Alex, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
Hey, Alex, I heard that Joel Embiid shoots too many free throws.
Don't get me started on this. He's winning MVP anyway, so I don't have to listen to you plebeians anymore.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Lots of basketball stuff going on right now. Really excited about March Madness. Still got my two squads in the Elite Eight, so I'm still alive, which is good. But yeah, so we're here to do a Q&A. As always, if you Craig responded to you, Tyler.
I'm not going to respond to his specific comments in the off chance that I get fired. So no thanks.
We just got an extension. Don't do too much.
Yeah. All right. So we are here to do a Q&A. So if you want to ask us a question, feel free to do so in the chat. As always, the super chat feature is enabled. So we do really appreciate all of that support. We are going to start with a question from Thomas Martinez, however, on Patreon. So Thomas is obviously a longtime supporter of the show, doing some great work on Twitter as well. If you guys are interested in talking about the draft and learning about the draft, he's doing some great work, so make sure and follow him. He wants to know about Trey Pipkins. He says specifically, is there any hope for Pipkins? And he's training with Duke. I mean, he is a 3-4 year project. What do you guys make of Pipkins' short-term and long-term outlook? Alex, we'll start with you there.
Define hope. I guess it depends on what the goal is. Can he be a functional swing tackle? Sure. I don't think that's a stretch after seeing some good play from him last season. And he works with Duke, gets another offseason. You could talk, yourself into that. And I think most would probably prefer him at this point to Norton if we're just talking purely swing tackle. But if you're talking about long-term future starter, I sell the, odds on that, to be honest. So, I think, but him just being a swing tackle, I think that's fine for what his long-term future on this roster is. If he gets some kind of short-term 1-2 year extension, I don't think that's crazy if he does play well this year in the spots that he's asked to. But yeah, no, the long-term future, I think he has the, I guess aspects and the trajectory of his, kind of career to kind of do that. As well as the physical intangibles, but it just never has come together in a full season. So I sell that.
Oh, geez. It's so tough to project this Trey Pipkins thing because you look at a guy in round 3 and specifically him, you think, okay, this is a 3-year project. What's the 3-year projection on this guy? And it took till the last 2 games of his 3rd year to show us that he could be a good tackle. But this, to me, I want to believe in him, of course. Thanks, Mom, for the super chat.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice super chat, Mom. Thank you very much. It's like Trey Pipkins, projecting him as like Chris Rump for me. Can Pipkins be a good tackle this season for the Chargers? It's possible, but I'm not going to find out. If Rumpf ends up being the best edge 3 the Chargers have ever seen, and if Pipkins ends up being the best tackle, right tackle the Chargers have ever seen, great. But that's a bad process, in my opinion. The result would be great, but I don't like the process there. And so that's why I want an edge 3, and that's why I want a right tackle over Pipkins. I think he could be good, but I'm not willing to go into the season and then find out.
Yeah, I understand that, certain people, are looking at what the Chargers have not done at right tackle and, think that the Chargers are banking on Trey Pipkins starting. And I just think we have to be a little bit better at connecting the dots, because to me, if they thought that Trey Pipkins were a quality starter or at least an option, then we would have heard more than, oh, we like him. You know what I mean? And so we know that Tom Telesco in the front office likes what they see from Trey Pipkins. They like his traits, but we haven't seen Brandon Staley share that same kind of opinion. And so when all we can do is connect the dots. If we're not getting information right, all we can do is connect the dots, and the dots to me are showing that the coaching staff does not view Trey Pipkins as a starter. And could that change with Nugent replacing Frank Smith? Sure, I guess so. But I would think that a new offensive line coach would come in and look at the vacancy at right tackle and be like, okay, I want to get my guy. I don't want to be forced into starting somebody who's been in this program for 3 years and has not really progressed very much. Someone said Kaiser to the Eagles. Did that happen?
That's very specific. So I'm trying to look up on Twitter. Oh, it actually happened. Yep, Eagles.
Wow.
Wow.
I get to keep Kaiser White. Screw you guys. I don't know. But okay. Well, what's the contract on that? Have any details
Not yet.
come out? Okay.
Who's tweeted about it?
Is it
A lot
Rappaport?
of people. Schefter. Like it did happen.
Schefter. Okay. That's interesting. I mean, the Eagles linebackers are garbage, so I will take any upgrade I can get, and Kaiser's proven quantity. Sad he didn't work out here though. Just going forward with that, but
yeah, I mean, we sort of all. Well, thanks for the news, Kaiser and Eagles. We needed something to talk about on the show today.
okay.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I mean, first of all, him being signed this late in the process was definitely a surprise. I know some people project him as like a 1 year wonder sort of thing, but I mean, a very productive linebacker, one of the best young ones for sure. So I'm happy, he goes to the Eagles. That seems like that'd be a lot of fun playing behind that defensive line for sure, especially when the Eagles go out and draft Jordan Davis. So I think that's a really, really solid front seven for them. I don't know. I mean, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but this would easily be the best linebacker, right? 1 year, $5 million.
1 year, $5 million, bro.
Ooh, the two wolves inside of me are fighting. But yeah, I mean, he's easily linebacker 1 on the Eagles. I mean, until the draft, if they want to go after Devin Lloyd or somebody like that. But yeah, right now he kind of easily slots into that role, and then they'll see what happens when the season goes. But yeah, no, they're really thin at linebacker. But yeah, no, I mean, he's great, and I think it's just a role thing as well. Like 1 year, $5 million. I think he was kind of willing to take less to have a bigger role, maybe to set himself up for free agency next year. I obviously it didn't seem like his market was super hot, but I guess you would kind of prefer a 1 year deal with the team to then set him up next year.
1 year, $5 million. So, and it's up to $5 million. So I don't know exactly.
Probably a smaller cap hit,
3.5 or something.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, geez, I knew. So I had guessed. I think we had all guessed that the Chargers couldn't re-sign Kaiser White because he'd get $8 million, 8 to 10, especially after Campbell and the other guy who went to the Jags got 15. You thought, okay, 8 maybe, 7, 6, 5, up to 5. I mean, we've all been talking about this on the side, especially with Argent, and I don't think we ever thought it'd be this low. So, geez, the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just linebacker value around the league seemingly in this free agency. But if you ever wondered how much Brandon Staley values linebackers, this is a lesson in that. Not up to $5 million, I guess, for someone like Kaiser White, which is a little bit crazy. I guess let's see what Arjun's guess in the comments is. I would guess it's probably $3 million guaranteed. Up to 5.
Yeah, Arjun throws some numbers.
Arjun said like up to $5 million is just disrespectful. It is, man. It is. Like it really sucks that he was not able to kind of capture a first wave kind of deal, as Jack points out. I mean, Foye Sade got $15 million per year for the Jaguars. Like, granted, that's the Jaguars just throwing money around, but still, like, that is awful. That is just.
Yeah, I mean, we knew the Chargers had interest, but then that obviously later that leaked DM came out that was legit. He's like, yeah, Chargers aren't bringing me back. So at some point they did close the door on that. But man, this really strains the whole Staley and Telesco won't pay linebackers sort of thing. And like I knew that they probably wouldn't, but you look at 2020 Broncos, 2021 Rams, or excuse me, 2020 Rams, 2021 Broncos, and most of those linebackers had a base salary of like $1 million. And so, but dang, man, Kaiser White, And I mean, Telesco gave Perryman what 2 for 12, I
Something
think, or
like
something
that.
like that.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that. This
I mean,
Yeah,
the
I mean,
different coaching staff, though. I mean, like, I think they valued having Perriman in the short term in the Lin regime more than they valued, I guess, having Kaiser kind of now. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that this was going to happen. That in terms of him leaving and not re-signing with the team, we knew that the Chargers just don't value linebacker. With Brandon Staley's staff, like Alex was saying. But man, $5 million for Kaiser White, like coming off a career season, like that's just painful. And we know that they like the players that they have. Tyler and I have both been told by separate people in the building that they are particularly very high on Eamon Ogbongbemiga and his potential and kind of his football IQ and the traits that he has to potentially become a starter. And to be honest with you, like if Eamon were starting next to Kenneth Murray next year, I would not be surprised at all. And keep Drew Tranquil in kind of a supporting role. And I get it, as DZ's pointing out, like you have these 4 guys that the team really presumably likes, and linebacker is really the one, or was the best or deepest position on the roster last year. And so I understand where they're coming from, but it's just frustrating, man. Like you see the best linebacker season of the last 15 years and you let him walk for $5 million. It's frustrating, but again, like I know why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Jose actually points out in the chat, and I just looked this up, that I didn't know Kaiser was from Pennsylvania. He's actually from Allentown, which is really close to Philadelphia. So maybe there's a bit of a hometown discount kind of element for him there. So that's kind of worth pointing out.
He wanted a bag. He wanted to get paid. Like he
Well,
definitely
they all
wanted to get
do.
paid.
But
Sure.
yeah.
Jeez. Whatever. Arjun has had some conversations with him about the things that are going on and where he could potentially go. Arjun at one point was sort of pitching a certain AFC West team, which I wasn't a fan of. But to me, based on everything you gather, I don't think his camp was doing a very good job here. Like it seemed that they weren't doing a good job addressing his concerns or understanding where he was at or what he wanted. Not that he told us that, but you piece enough things together, and it just didn't seem like they were doing a good job getting him to the right spot. I think it's actually not a specific agent, but an agency. And I think they also represent Mike Williams, but they obviously prioritize one deal. And I think White just kind of got kicked to the side, and now he's on 1 year, $5 million. It's a real bummer. He deserves more than that for sure.
Yeah, I wonder if they were kind of waiting for the Chargers to kind of change their stance, and that kind of kept him out of the first wave of free agency, unfortunately. So I don't know. I hope we get some more details there. I mean, it sucks, but at least he's going to the NFC, and at least he's not going to the AFC West. So wish him well in Philadelphia. Know that he's going to absolutely crush it. Like Alex said, they have a big need there. If they end up with Kaiser White and Devin Lloyd, man, that'd be really interesting for me. Two of my guys. So we'll have to see what happens there. All right, we'll change the subject here. He had a super chat question from earlier I want to get to. He said, did Tom Telesco's offseason moves buy him more than 1 year of keeping his job? So Telesco did sign a contract extension last year, right? Didn't he?
Did he?
There was like a hidden one where at the end of the year he said he had signed one. I think like either the previous year or during
I don't think
the
anything
year.
got reported though.
Okay, I thought I remember seeing one, but
I will do a Google.
Cool, thank you. I could have sworn I heard something like last year about him signing an extension or something like that, but I think there is this outside perception on Twitter that Telesco's seat was hot heading into this season, and it could have been, certainly. I think all 3 of us were on the same page that we wanted a clean sweep when they decided to fire Anthony Lynn. What's up, Alex?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, in terms of an extension, he signed one after when they lost to the Patriots in the playoffs after 2018. He signed a multi-year extension then. So I don't think since then he signed one.
I didn't remember that. Wow.
Yeah.
So that was after. So that would have been spring or winter 2019.
Yeah, spring 2019. Yeah, in March.
Okay. So he's probably got
probably a year or two left, I guess. But like, honestly, this feels like kind of one of those situations where the years don't matter, like in terms of what's on the deal. If the team's winning, he'll keep his job, and if the team's not winning, he won't keep his job. I guess the real question here is whether or not he's tied to Staley, because there could be a theoretical, thing where it's like, well, if the team's winning, but they don't feel they have enough depth, right? Could they fire Telesco, replace him, and then kind of run another GM with Staley? Because that's always possible. But I do kind of think the two are tied together. At the end of the day, he did draft Justin Herbert, and that's bought him the security and honestly bought him non-losing seasons, right? Like, I mean, it's very hard with this roster that they currently have in Justin Herbert to think that they will have a losing season. Of course, there can be disappointments like not making the playoffs or stuff like that, but I think he's here for at the very least the next 2 years, and then after that, we'll see.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Sorry, I was just going to say that I think he's finishing out the rookie contract, obviously, with the fifth year option. Brandon Staley is very involved here, too. So if they fire Tom Telesco, I'm not saying it would be like a scapegoat firing, but Staley is pretty clearly very involved with free agency this time around, with Jackson, with Mack, with Sebastian Joseph Day. So, I think he's there all the next 3 years. They've signed players to fill out and be here for the next 3 years. I think it's as long as Lester's going to be here. Then they'll reevaluate once Herbert's rookie contract is sort of up. Unless things are really bad this year. If they get worse and they lose a bunch of games, then sure. But I think based on their trajectory, I think he's here for the rookie contract.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say if the Chargers don't make the playoffs this year, then someone will get fired, whether that's, a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, or GM. I don't really know, but if they don't live up to expectations this year, then someone's going to be a scapegoat. But I kind of doubt it's Telesco, like Alex said. It just does kind of seem that, that him and Brandon Staley are kind of tied together at this point. And I mean, like, the one thing that I've always said about Tom Telesco is that he has been pretty good about collaborating with his head coaches. And, we've seen that work out, obviously, and we've seen it turn into Kenneth Murray and Joshua Kelly. So, the one thing about Tom Telesco that I know he's going to do is he's going to be collaborative with Brandon Staley. It's going to be a process. And at least over the last 2 years, their team building process has been significantly better than what it was under the two previous coaching staffs. So I don't think we're going to see Tom Telesco get fired anytime soon. I think that, like Tyler said, I think the earliest would be, at the end of Justin Herbert's contract. And then, you kind of see where you're at in that instance. But I mean, if the Chargers are having the seasons that we're all kind of expecting over the next 2-3 years, then Tom Telesco is not going anywhere. And I know that people are frustrated with him, but the reality is that you get a quarterback like Justin Herbert, that buys you time. You get a coach like Brandon Staley to work out, that buys you time, and then you win games, and that just kind of keeps rolling. So I think Tom Telesco here is here to stay for the foreseeable future.
Yep.
I'm really interested to see if I don't want the Chargers to lose, but if they lose, I'm curious to see what the fans' reaction would be, because he did everything you wanted. So
yeah,
he made the big move. He signed Jackson, got Sebastian Joseph Day, beefed up the interior of the defensive line. He did everything you wanted. So I'm curious to see if they lose, what the fan reaction is. Of course, we know that they'll call for his head, despite the fact that they wanted despite the fact that we wanted these moves to happen. Holy crap.
There you go. I know. I've been tweeting about my frustrations about the edge 3 market and the right tackle market and how it's just kind of passing the Chargers by. And people are like, typical Telesco, he doesn't do shit. He doesn't have the balls to make moves. And it's like, are we kidding me? Like, were we sleeping last week? Like, I'm far from a Telesco supporter, but like Tyler's saying, like, he gave everything that we all wanted, right? Like, he made big moves. He shored up the run defense. And, unfortunately, it has kind of stopped, and I would really like a right tackle or an edge 3 at this point. But, he did what they set out to do in the offseason. Like, you trade for Khalil Mack, you sign J.C. Jackson, moves that none of us were really ever truly expecting. So, I mean, the offseason has gone about as good as you could have hoped at this point.
Yeah.
Tyler, I don't know if you saw, Zach Pearson wants to know if your mom will adopt him because she's so supportive. So, shout out to the Shroom family.
No. Financially possible, but no.
All right. There was another super chat. Let me scroll down. Oh, that was just from your mom. Okay.
This one from Sean O'Brien, if you want to read that
There
one.
we go. All right. Sean asks, Garrett Wilson, George Karlaftis, Jordan Davis, Jamin Williams, and the big three tackles are off the board. Who's your guy? Who you trade back?
Okay. Are we specifying anyone else is off the board or just those like
I think there's assumptions.
okay. Well,
But,
I
like-
either is Olave off the board? Are we saying that, or is he still on?
I would assume that
In
he
this
would still
scenario.
be on the board if all of these players are off the board.
Yeah, I'm
So,
taking him.
Yeah, it would be like Olave, Trevor Penning, Raymond, Andrew Booth, Devontae Wyatt, that crowd.
Send in Olave.
Yeah, I mean, we had this same kind of scenario with our mock draft, and I don't like Trevor Penning as much as certain people do, and I do not think that he's worth taking at 17th overall. If they trade down and get him, then whatever. But if this is the scenario, I personally would take Olave as well. But if Trevor Penning's on the board, I think that's like the running the card for the Chargers. Like I think Trevor Penning is, if he's there, he will be the selection at least right now.
Oh, I'd taking Trevor Penning over Olave would be so gross. It
would
God,
be.
It would be so. Please sign a right tackle. We can't do that. We can't do that on draft night.
It's amazing. Last year, it's like, don't take a wide receiver, take a tackle. And this year, it's like, please take a wide receiver, don't take the tackle.
I know, and the receiver room is in better shape than it was last year.
Definitely. Jeez. What I think the Chargers will do, is Penning. I would very much like to see this Kenyon Green guy out there. If it doesn't work, put him at right guard at some point, I guess. But I think he can totally fly as a tackle for this team. But I don't know if they'll go with that. But yeah, trade back. It seems too easy, and they've never done it. But I do think this is the offseason that they do it. So
I guess if I had to rank them in order, I'd probably go Olave, trade back, then Booth or Green, probably in some order.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to take an offensive lineman, I would rather take one of the guards. I think Kenyon Green and Zion Johnson are frankly better prospects at their position than Trevor Penning. And then you can kind of fill out right tackle later, I guess. I don't really know, but like I said, I feel like Trevor Penning, if he's there, then he's going to be the selection. But yeah, I'm totally on board. Would prefer other options in that instance. Shout out to Justin, aka So Light, for the sticker as well. Oh, and then he sent another one. What are the odds of us trading up to draft one of the top 3 tackles if they fall? So this was a scenario that CBS Sports actually had the Chargers trading up to number 7 to draft Ikem Ekwonu. I did a video about that, so if you missed that, please go check that out after you watch this. I think realistically for the Chargers to make a move up to draft one of the top tackles, they would have to fall to at least number 10. I would have a hard time picturing the Chargers really doing that scenario and giving up a future first round pick to move up into the top 7 to take one of those guys. But, there has been some buzz building recently, of course, as there always is, about the quarterbacks and potentially Malik Willis going at number 2 and Kenny Pickett going at number 6 to the Panthers. And so there is a chance that Charles Cross falls out of the top 10. Of course, the Seattle Seahawks need a left tackle, so they could take him there at number 9. But I think in order for the Chargers to move up, they would have to fall out of the top 10 realistically. And even then, I don't really know, because then you're probably giving up that 3rd round pick to move up to number 10, number 11 to draft one of these tackles. And at that point, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I think he stays at 17. I don't think he would trade up into the top 10 just because I don't see Telesco giving up a future first. If he slides, then I guess you can probably give up next year's 2nd to trade up. Is that what they could do at that point then? Or the 2nd and a 3rd? Not quite sure, but some kind of valuation there. But yeah, no, I don't see them trading up for an offensive tackle. I think they'll have Penning, or they'll have one of the guys kind of available to them. maybe cross falls like we've seen in some mock drafts, but I don't see them trading up.
Yeah, Arjun says you don't trade up for a non-QB, period. I happen to disagree there. I think trading up for an edge rusher or an offensive tackle is fine as long as you're not giving up like a future first. Like if you're the Dolphins trading a future first to move up for Jalen Waddle, you better be getting like a Hall of Fame receiver. And I don't know if that's going to be the case there. But if you're trading up for an edge rusher, a premium edge rusher or offensive tackle, I'm okay with trading up in the first round. Definitely not a linebacker, definitely not a running back, but offensive tackle.
No, who would do that?
Yeah. Can't remember. I don't think Tom Telesco's ever traded for a linebacker before. Don't think
I think he's only done it twice.
Back. Yeah, it always works out. Jeez. So if they moved up this year, that third round pick wouldn't even get him to the top 10. So it would just be next year's second or next year's first, or depending on how far you needed to go. I mean, and then Washington, I think, is okay at tackle. The Jets could get one at 10, but it depends on what they do at 4. Houston, Baltimore. Baltimore needs a tackle, right?
Yes.
I mean, the good news is if you get to 14.
Wait, no, Baltimore signed Morgan Moses. They don't need a tackle.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so they don't need a tackle. Houston needs a tackle. They have Tunsil and they have Howard. So does Minnesota have?
Yeah, but they do want to take one of these linemen apparently, and just get like best 5 out there. And Titus Howard has played guard, so.
Yeah, I'd wait for them to get outside the top 10, but yeah, it's rough.
I will say, in terms of like which positions Telesco would trade up for, I don't think he's very analytically minded on that. I think he would trade up for any position if he likes a guy with enough, as we saw with Melvin Gordon.
That's the thing.
As we saw with Kenneth Murray, a wide receiver or an offensive tackle. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he traded up for any position really, if he felt that player available would help the team. So to Arjun's detriment, I don't think that the position really matters. It just is if the value is there.
Yeah, he's shown that if he likes a player enough and he feels like he has to trade up to get them, then he will do that. So, yeah.
What is Brandon Staley more likely to trade up for?
An edge rusher, a corner.
Yeah, I'd probably say that.
Okay.
Yeah. So Charles Michael Sinclair, Popper seems convinced that Matt Feiler will be the starting right tackle. He does seem pretty convinced about this, and maybe this is the solution. I don't really know. I mean, he played both positions in Pittsburgh with Sean Surratt when he was there. So, I mean, the two have a good relationship. They know each other. They know their strengths and everything like that. So I guess I wouldn't be shocked if that was the result. But the thing is that we talked about is the financial side of things, because right now Matt Feiler is making like bottom tier 2 offensive tackle money. So Matt Feiler doesn't really have the incentive to go play a tackle without a raise. Like, that's the thing here that people need to take into account. And I'm not saying that Daniel Popper isn't doing that, but I don't see the upside for Feiler to kick unless he's getting that raise. And maybe he's willing to like bet on himself in 2022 and then get a raise, then get an extension. But I just have a hard time looking at a player who's played really, really well at left guard saying, okay, yeah, move me to right tackle for like the 4th change in my career and not give me a raise.
Yeah. I just think it would be hard to move him out there. I mean, they could, like Popper says, I think it makes the most sense out of the options that they have. But also, at the end of the day, if you have like 2 holes in a boat, you're kind of plugging up one and then opening up the other, right? Like in terms of the guard situation there, obviously that kind of changes if you re-sign O'Day, and then you can play around with things like we kind of expect them to. But that hasn't happened yet. So they still kind of have both guard and tackle problems. So if you fill one, you kind of end up, having to fill the other at some point. So yeah, I mean, I think it's the best solution that they have to their disposal right now, if we assume that they don't take a tackle in the draft, but that seems to kind of be the favorite for the first round pick right now. So I would sell it for now.
Yeah, I'm a sell as well. You guys brought up all the points. Basically, I don't see it happening. It's too good of a thing at left guard.
Yeah, and Brandon Staley has continually pointed out the importance of continuity and making as little changes or as few changes as possible along the offensive line. So I don't know. I'm skeptical of why Popper thinks that and has written about it so much, but maybe he knows something that we don't. That's always possible as well. Jason Dawson had an interesting question here. Shout out for the super chat. He said, how much do you guys believe in Staley as the leader of this team and his coaching style? Do you like the aggressiveness on fourth downs? Is his particular question. Tyler, why don't you answer this one first?
I like Brandon Staley a lot. It's obviously the beginning of year 2, and this is where we'll definitely figure out what kind of coach he really is. I think the fourth down stuff I do really like. Of course, there are some exceptions. There are moments where maybe reconsider, but overall, I do like the fourth down aggressiveness, especially with this quarterback. But more importantly, more than anything, I think, is just the commitment to the trenches. I think him saying, hey, we're going to be a trench team, and then being able to overnight overhaul entire units, an entire offensive line, an entire defensive line is amazing. You know, it took so long for the Chargers to ever do that with a previous regime, where it's like, okay, we'll try to plug this one guy in. Let's sign an aging veteran here. You know, your 7th round tackle ends up starting. No, we're going to go get good players that are going to start now, and we're going to overhaul this unit immediately. And I think him doing that in back-to-back off seasons is fantastic. So I really like Staley as a leader. Obviously, if you watch him talk, you know, I think the first time we heard him speak again after the season was the combine, I think. And it was just like, oh my God, thank you. Like him talking again was so awesome. You just love to hear him talk. It sounds like, you know, the players love him. Obviously, Derwin James loves him. You know, he sat in front of JC Jackson and read his scouting report to him and just talked about how much he admired what he did on the field. I think he expresses that sort of love and admiration for all of his guys. And I think he's a really good leader.
Yeah, as a leader, I think there's a ton to like here. And the Chargers, you know, have several of the players have spoken out about how much they believe in him. And, you know, this recently we heard Sebastian Joseph Day talk in his press conference and with Haley Elwell and the camera on thing that, you know, what Brandon Staley talks about and what he shows really means a lot to these players. And so, you know, as a leader, I think Brandon Staley is as good as you could possibly get in that regard. And, you know, it's a fresh change of pace. Not to say that Anthony Lynn wasn't a good leader, just like very stoic, right? Like very, I'm not going to give out any kind of intel or any kind of details or anything like that. So from a communicator standpoint, Brandon Staley has been a breath of fresh air for sure. I think there absolutely are things that he needs to work on as a coach, particularly like managing his roster and not keeping 5 tight ends and 3 quarterbacks and 4 running backs and 5 linebackers and like all this stuff, right? But that's kind of beside the point. In terms of the aggressive nature of his play calling and the aggressive nature in which he is building his roster, I'm a big fan, right? Like, you know, Anthony Lynn was so conservative in that regard. He was, you know, never really kind of a push my chips in kind of coach on the field or off the field. And Brandon Staley is the opposite, right? I think we're all in favor of, you know, that kind of change, you know, the analytically driven change that has kind of happened with this franchise. And with Justin Herbert on his roster leading his team, like, why would you not want to see Justin Herbert get more opportunities and be more aggressive and play to win games as opposed to playing not to lose them like they were losing? So I think Brandon Staley's off to a good start. Obviously, I think there is room for improvement in certain areas, but I do think that Brandon Staley is the right man for this job, and that hasn't really changed since he was hired.
Yeah, I buy Brandon Staley as a leader for all the reasons that you guys have kind of pointed out, both off the field, on the field. There are things that I do think he does wrong. I mean, Steven talked about roster management, clock management, not the greatest in that regard. And I think fourth downs, there are, you know, some like, you know, fourth in your own territory and you run a, you know, Austin Eckler halfback dive. You know, that wasn't the greatest moment for, you know, fourth down aggressiveness, but you're also kind of going to live and die by the fourth down. And that's, you know, the whole principle of it. But, you know, the play calls in those situations, that's kind of a Lombardi thing. But in some instances, it also is a Staley thing as well. Could be better. So, you know, there are moments where I wish he wouldn't go for it on fourth down, or I wish he would have used the clock better. But ultimately, I do buy him as the leader of this team going forward.
Yeah. And I think it's always important to remember that this was his first year as a coach, right? And then, you know, first year with the systems and first year with all these players. So,
right,
you know, it stands to reason that, you know, he can improve. And that's the thing that I think a lot of us tend to forget, is that just like players improve, coaches can as well. And so, you know, I had this conversation with people last summer about the hiring of Joe Lombardi, about how like, oh, he was awful in Detroit. It's like, well, he was a coordinator there for like 18 games. like it's possible that he improved in the time since then. And I think we'll see that with Brandon Staley. Like you said, clock management, I feel pretty confident that he's going to be a little bit better in that instance. I think his challenges were pretty lousy as well. So maybe that's something he learned from Sean McVay, but I do think that those are areas he can improve upon for sure. All right. Next question from Zane Ferguson. He thinks that Herbert needs a burner receiver at 17 over a right tackle. Alex, what do you think?
Not a burner receiver, but just a wide receiver in general. Would be my commentary on this question. Yeah, I mean, I would like it if Jameson Williams is there, but like, I don't think the other wide receiver options should be counted out just because they're not burners. Like if Garrett Wilson was theoretically on the board, I don't think he should be counted out because he's the best wide receiver in this class. Same if Olave is there, like has been said, I wouldn't call him a burner, but he is really fast and athletic as well. But in general, my philosophy is wide receiver over right tackle because they have filled out the left tackle and because they still can solve right tackle in free agency. And then, figure out what they want to do with the future of right tackle later, rather than kind of be pigeonholed into taking, a subpar right tackle or a subpar tackle prospect compared to what they got in Slater last year. So I do agree with wide receiver at 17 over right tackle.
What if the Chargers actually aren't interested in a burner wide receiver and actually want to go with physicality over a burner in this regard? Because, you look at the Josh Palmer draft pick, you look at them going to get Gerald Everett, who's not a burner himself, although he can burn a little bit, but he's a physical after the catch guy. What if the Chargers are more interested in a player who's more physical than he is speedy?
I've been told that Garrett Wilson is the new Julio Jones by Dan. So he actually is very physical in that regard.
That was well done, Alex. Very well done there. And who was the first one that he compared to Keyshawn Johnson? Was that Drake London?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Drake London was the Keyshawn Johnson, and then Olave is new Keenan.
Fast Keenan.
Oh yeah, fast Keenan. Sorry.
I know. I've never really understood the Keenan Allen comparisons, to be honest with you. I think they're two completely different receivers, but anyways, I think in terms of a wide receiver, really the only one that I think is probably not in the cards is Drake London, just because him and Mike Williams are so similar. And I think you want to have a little more diverse wide receiver room. So, in terms of wide receiver over tackle, and as it pertains to like building a roster, it is easier to get a receiver later in the draft as opposed to a tackle in this specific class. And in this specific instance, I do think I would much rather have Olave, Wilson, Treylon Burks over a guy like Trevor Penning or Bernard Raymond. But I think what Tyler's point is interesting too, because, they have Jalen Guyton to be their speed guy. And Brandon Staley did say they want more speed, but could that come in terms of like yards after catch? And I know he didn't have like a great 40, but Treylon Burks would really be kind of like that fifth receiver that they just don't really have. And then you have five guys who really can each give you different skill sets. So I think that is an interesting idea to keep an eye on.
One thing I will say, because when the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, I'm thinking, okay, the main target, the team the Chargers have to beat, it's probably the Bills in the AFC Championship. That's probably the team. So I reached out to Anthony Cover One, who does that Cover One podcast and covers the Bills. Awesome follow, awesome breakdowns. And I asked him, which player is the player that you don't want the Chargers to get at 17? If you could pick one player within reason, who do you not want them to get? And he didn't say receiver. He actually said right tackle. So I think just from an outside perspective, an opposing team, someone who covers the Bills, doesn't want the Chargers to get a right tackle. So I think actually right tackle is they need a right tackle, but that could be the more beneficial option.
Yeah, I think that could be the more beneficial option if you're talking about what the Bills just did, got Von Miller. I mean, so that would be the concern there in terms of tackle depth and fortifying, two top line starters. That's kind of a can't go wrong situation for me. I mean, if you have Penning or Cross on the board, obviously varying degrees of a win there. But I do still think I lean towards the skill positions. I mean, I think that's kind of what wins games in this league, as we've seen with the Chiefs, who have had bad and good offensive lines. But, the sticking point through all of that was, hey, we have Tyreek Hill. Hey, we have Travis Kelce, and, Patrick Mahomes, obviously. So I kind of lean more towards that philosophy, but obviously, yeah, they do need a right tackle eventually. But yeah, I think it's also just one of those positions where if they didn't get Slater last year, and let's say they took, I don't know, whoever was left on the board at that point from another position, let's say just theoretically they went with Micah Parsons or Devonta Smith, and they still have this glaring hole at left tackle or right tackle, then I think that would affect what thinking is, for sure.
Sure.
But because they have solidified that, I think that still does give them options.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting like financial thing too, because like let's say you do draft Trevor Penning and you do develop him into at least kind of like a Pro Bowl caliber kind of tackle, not necessarily the same kind of caliber as Rashawn Slater, because I don't think that is going to happen. But I mean, Penning is athletic. He does have the traits. Like he just needs a lot of work in the technique aspect. But financially speaking, like let's say you do draft this guy and he does hit for you, then 4 years from now, you're looking at paying Rashawn Slater top tier tackle money and at least above average money to a right tackle, presumably. So it is an interesting financial thing as well to keep in mind, because, like Tom Telesco always says, you are building for the future. And would the Chargers be that kind of team to have two expensive offensive tackles as opposed to kind of, spreading the money around elsewhere like we're kind of seeing them do right now?
Right, and I think the other thing to point out there is once they're done paying Keenan Allen and Mike Williams their current contracts, right? Let's say they draft a wide receiver with their first round pick this year, you'd probably be right about to sign that guy to an extension along with Rashawn Slater, if in terms of that kind of like value. So that's another thing if we're talking about spreading the money around.
Yeah. All right, next question, again from Zach Pearson. He wants to know if you could add one former Charger to the current squad to fill a hole in the team, who would it be? I feel like this answer changes like all the time. I don't know.
Kaiser White.
I was right about to make it. Oh, Kaiser White.
My brain is being conditioned by all the right tackle talk, so give me Jeremy Clary, please.
Oh, Darren Sproles. Darren Sproles. God, if he could be RB2 on this team, that'd be fun.
I mean, we could kind of say all the obvious names. I
mean, obviously, if I could add LT to this team, I would.
Yeah,
but...
sure, right.
Yeah, I think mine's gonna be Darren Sproles. God, their RB2 situation sucks.
Michael
Just
Turner?
Get fast guy. Yeah. Nah, I don't know. I feel like I'd lean Sproles there.
Were you not a Michael Turner guy?
No, I was not a Michael Turner guy. Compared to Michael Turner, I mean, somewhat athletic, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's more in the Roundtree category than the fast twitchy guys. But
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's just also a better complement to Eckler. I don't know, but they're both small, so maybe that wouldn't work.
Yeah. Interesting.
Trying to think of a smart answer, and I couldn't think of anything useful.
I was having this conversation because people were talking to Tyler, the masked antler guy on Twitter, about like bust first round picks the Chargers have had, and like several people brought up Ryan Matthews' name, and like I get the injuries and stuff, and like he was after LT, but I went and looked at the stats, man, and Ryan Matthews had more 1,000-yard rushing seasons than Melvin Gordon did.
He did.
And I think that's something that people kind of just forget, again, because of the injuries, because he was like the post-LT running back. But Ryan Matthews was good for us. He was just hurt. He was like the running back version of Justin Jones, man. Just like when he was healthy and on the field, he was really good. He just wasn't on the field a whole lot.
He was the running back version of Justin Jackson. If you want to go there. I mean,
he was the RB1 version of Justin Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matthews was awesome. I was really excited about him. Fresno State?
Yeah, Fresno State, yep. And then he went to the Eagles. Was he on the... No, that was much earlier. No.
He wasn't there for very long.
Was he on the super team? Was he on the Vince Young super team with the Eagles?
No, that was 2010, 2011. So that would have been before Ryan Matthews was an Eagle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
When was he an Eagle? God.
20...
That would have been 16 and 17.
Well, yeah, he was drafted in 2011, so then he would have hit free agency. Oh, 2015. Yeah.
So he was an Eagle in 15 and 16.
I don't remember exactly, actually.
Poor guy missed out on the
I
Super
think
Bowl
20.
just by that much.
Yeah, 2015, 2016. So I think then he got released in 2017 in neck surgery. So that was right before the Carson Wentz, semi MVP season, and then the Super Bowl run. So yeah, kind of missed. It kind of was in a weird window there in Philadelphia, and then got cut with neck surgery. Unfortunately, I don't think he played again after that.
No, I don't think he did. Interesting point, Craig, which I do think is accurate. He said Telesco said they wouldn't be complacent on offense just because they finished in the top 5. One free agency move points towards an offensive draft emphasis, it seems. So I do agree that they could certainly focus in on the offense in the first 2 picks, and I think that is kind of a right strategy. Like maybe you do get a tackle in the first round and receiver in the 3rd round kind of thing, or flip it. But I mean, the offense I feel like is going to improve just because of continuity of scheme and players, and you have Gerald Everett over Jared Cook, and if you can get that RB2 situation solved, then I think the offense can certainly improve going forward.
I don't know. I don't know why. I just see this Trevor Penning, Jalen Guyton wide receiver 3 offense happening. I don't know why. I'm just getting this vibe where I think they're kind of stuck for now. Things can change. They can sign someone this week. Everything changes, but they just seem so stuck, and they need edge 3. They need defensive depth, and they're always going to be looking for corners apparently. So
I also think that they have so many draft picks still. What is it, 10 now after they traded the 2nd? That at this point, I don't think it'll be offense or defense skewed. I think it'll be pretty even. Sure. Maybe with slight, if you want to say 7 offensive picks, 3 defensive, or 6 and 4, whatever it is. But I really don't think it'll skew. 2 offensive. Also, special team specialists is always a possibility, as we did in the mock draft on Wednesday. But no, I don't think it'll be one over the other.
Yeah, and I will say, like, in terms of the draft, and Brandon Staley is clearly being influenced by his time with the Rams, and the Rams really, like, majority of their defensive core outside of like the stars, it was 6th round pick Sebastian Joseph Day, 5th round pick Greg Gaines, 4th round pick Jordan Fuller, 5th round pick John Johnson. So Brandon Staley is not afraid to take these guys in the 6th, 7th round and develop them more than we think. So, Tyler and I and Alex have talked about like a guy like Trey Sterling or Verone McKinley or something like that. Makes a lot of sense on day 3. Maybe that's where you get your cornerback as well. As Brandon Felton points out, Cam Taylor-Britt. I'm a big fan of Cam Taylor-Britt. Some people kind of think he's more of a safety slot kind of guy. So maybe he's in that kind of range. So Brandon said he's not afraid to take on these longer term projects, if you will, on day 3 in terms of defensive players and kind of develop them. So I can see what Craig's saying. 1st, 3rd, 4th round picks, maybe our offense, and then kind of the rest are defense and special teams from there.
Yeah, so they took, obviously Samuel Jr., but then it was just Rumpf. They waited a long time for safety last year. Was it just the last pick?
7th.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, Mark
Webb, yeah. Huh. Yes, Craig's on the Bo Melton train.
Yeah, there we go. Propaganda.
his I don't know if his stock is rising because I don't know where he was, but the Bootleg Football podcast, they were talking about Bo Melton as an offensive gem in this draft, and I think Brett Coleman or EJ Snyder, they had Bo Melton the same tier as like a Khalil Shakir, I think, or Sky Moore. So
I want to say the TDN last draft or the first one we did, he was in like the 6th, 7th round. And, routinely, I guess we did 2 mock drafts last time. He was more picked in like the 3rd, 4th round. So, I mean, he's kind of gone up pretty high.
Yeah, I feel like if the Chargers don't take a receiver in the 1st round, I feel like the sweet spot there would be the 4th round pick, because I think, the first round pick and the 3rd round pick, like I said, you're looking at some combination of tackle, edge, or receiver. I feel like at least that's kind of where it seems right now. So maybe 4th round pick, you're looking at, Bo Melton, Tyquan Thornton, Khalil Shakir kind of player. And honestly, I wouldn't hate that. I feel like, if you're trying to diversify the offense and add more speed, as opposed to like getting your receiver 1 or 2 of the future and drafting Olave or Jameson Williams or something like that, I think adding more depth there in the 4th round would not be the worst case scenario. Yes, Tyron Johnson still on the Raiders, unfortunately. Lorenzo McDaniel says, I think running back has to be addressed before the 5th round. I think 5th round is still okay. I think after 5th round, I see what you're saying. I'm not really interested in doing the whole like late day 3 running back pick again. I do think this running back class is much better than last year's, but I do kind of see what you're saying for sure.
I mean, I don't feel like I have a round on it at this point. I just think I just don't trust Telesco to evaluate running backs. Like that's kind of where I'm at this point. After
Sure.
I mean, Kelly was a 4th round pick. After they traded up for Kenneth Murray.
Number 25, Josh Kelly, by the way.
Oh Jesus. Yeah, of course he picked Chris Harris's number.
I know,
but
we can't escape bad number 25s, man. It's just like whoever wears that number.
Neither can I.
Destined to be awful.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's less of a specific round for me and just more. I don't think that Telesco has shown the ability to get good running backs in the draft. Obviously, got Austin Eckler, which is great value in undrafted free agency. But yeah, I don't know.
The best running back transaction that Tom Telesco has ever made was an undrafted free agent. So that's fun.
Do you think they're likely to upgrade in front with a better, running back in front of Roundtree and Kelly, or behind them?
How bad do you have to be behind them?
Right.
Sorry. I mean, like, what I mean is like take a guy in the 4th round that is going to be your RB2, or are they more likely to take a guy in the
add competition instead?
Yeah. Probably the latter. Probably behind those two, or competing with those two, I guess. But yeah, like I just don't know what they view those players as anymore. I mean, they kind of seem to be out on Kelly entirely, and then Roundtree is obviously the Staley pick. So maybe there's still some energy there, but yeah, I guess between those options, the latter.
Yeah. So like, I mean, we took Verdell in the mock draft, right? Like, is Verdell competition? Is he better than them? Like, I think that's the range where Tyler's asking about.
Yeah, I mean, Verdell does have the injuries, but I would kind of say he's better than them. I mean, yeah.
I did want to ask you guys this question from Jacob. Who do you think is the most overrated player going into the draft? I'm going to get a lot of shit for this. He's going to make my top 10. I think it's Kyle Hamilton. I'll be completely honest. People are saying that he is like the best player in this draft and is the cleanest prospect you can take it number 1 overall because he's the best. Again, he'll probably make my top 10, but people are like, that's the best player in this draft. And I don't feel that way after watching him yesterday.
I feel like my answer is pretty obvious. Bernard Raymond.
I feel like that hype has kind of cooled off, though.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. He's still going to go in probably the first 2 rounds, though, right? I mean, so if I don't think he is the first 2 rounds player, then that probably would be my most overrated one. We don't talk about quarterbacks a lot on this show, but Kenny Pickett, overrated. Yeah, like that I do not understand at all in terms of the attributes, and potentially taking him over Malik Willis is crazy to me. So I would go with him, I guess.
Yeah, in terms of quarterback, like it has to be Pickett. I don't see like a 1st round pick in Kenny Pickett when I watch him. So I agree there. I think in terms of the top 10 guys, for me, it's absolutely Trayvon Walker. And I totally get the traits, and I totally get, he's an athletic freak. And, recently it's been like, oh, well, the Packers did the same. Like they took Rashawn Gary in the 1st round, and like he was a freak who was kind of unrefined, and it's worked out for them. And it's like, well, Rashawn Gary was also like hyper productive at Michigan. He was playing out of position, and it took him 3 years to hit. So like if Trayvon Walker goes number 2 overall, or he's getting number 1 pick hype right now. Like if Trayvon Walker goes number 1 and it takes him 3 years to become Rashawn Gary, then I think whoever drafts him is in trouble. So if Walker were like pick 15, I'd be cool with it. If he were picked 17 for the Chargers, I'd be cool with it. But it's just the hype there to me does not match the production. It matches the traits for sure, but I think you're looking at like comparing him, his film and his tape is worse than Hutchinson. It's worse than Thibodeau's. It's worse than Jermaine Johnson's, frankly. It's worse than David Ojabo's, in my opinion. So if Trayvon Walker were like a top 15 guy, I'm cool with it. If he's number 1 overall and it takes him 3 years to become Rashawn Gary, that's a problem.
Yeah, I like Trayvon Walker. I did a film breakdown on him. I've kind of
I like him too, just not as a top 5
but
guy.
God, yeah, no, where he's being projected with some people is insane to me. I just can't think of a player with that much of a projected ceiling to be going top 5 or 4th overall. Like I get that he's good, but after Hutchinson and Thibodeau, like he should at least be edge 3 in my opinion. And or not, well, if anything, if the highest to me could be edge 3, and it's so weird to see him go top 5 in some mocks. I just don't get it.
If the debate was him versus Ojabo, I would totally get it. If it was him versus Jermaine Johnson, I'd be a little more inclined to go with Jermaine Johnson, but I would understand that debate. Now it's Aiden Hutchinson versus Trayvon Walker. Like, what are we doing? I don't get it at all.
Yeah.
I'll throw Tyquan Thornton in here in terms of overrated players, because we did sort of do our episode before the combine when it came to the wide receivers, so I feel like his stock since then has gotten pretty inflated. I'm probably going to go back of the 2nd round, 3rd round now, and before he ran that 40 time, none of us would put him in our top 10s, and none of us did. So like to me, that's a player who not quite John Rossian, but I think because of the combine has gotten, a pretty hefty stock bump that I don't think his resume and tape deserves.
I lost him there at the end.
Yeah, I lost you at the end.
No, I was just saying I think Tyquan Thornton was a bit overrated. Don't think that his I guess the hype that he's getting is representative of his resume in college.
I watched Christian Harris a long time ago. I totally think that he's overrated, but he seems like he's falling a bit now, so I don't know.
Yeah, the linebacker class is kind of all over the place, and I think people are kind of just bored of Devin Lloyd and Nakobe Dean at this point, which doesn't make any sense to me. All right, Teresa Compapas has a super chat question. Would you rather have Penning and Calvin Austin / Bo Melton, or Jameson Williams and your favorite 3rd round right tackle? I think the answer there is clearly the latter in terms of my preference.
If I got my favorite 3rd round right tackle, so let's say Lucas or Mitchell, and you could guarantee me that the guy is there,
right?
Sure. Then yeah, I'll take Jameson in that right tackle.
Yeah, I probably go Jameson in the right tackle. Although you kind of threw me for a loop when you put Bo Melton in there. If you thrown Sky, if you threw Sky Moore in there, we would be having a conversation. But yeah, I got to go ladder.
Yeah. And getting kind of back to Tyler's point, we're going to talk about safeties on our show tomorrow, actually. But I do think Kyle Hamilton is definitely a little overrated. I don't think he's the best player in the draft by any means, but I do think he's a really good prospect.
We have another super chat from Carter up here, similar to yesterday's video, your video, Steven. Could we trade up to 7 and keep our first? We could draft a top 3 offensive tackle and get Jameson Williams or Olave. That would be absurdly OP.
No, like you'd have to pick swap in the 1st round.
Sadly, there is this thing called economics, and it prevents you from doing this. So I would, I don't think they can do that. There might be ways to circumvent trading next year's first, but definitely not trading this year's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd have to probably trade a player at that point for number 7, and no, that would be one of your good ones. So no, thank you.
Yeah, the Kyle Hamilton, Derwin James comparisons to me are a little off base. Just was reading that in the chat.
Up top from Christoph Zielinski. If the Chargers trade down in the first round, obtain a low second round pick in the process, how does it change draft options for us? What do you guys think?
Well,
we don't have to wait.
We don't have to wait 5 hours doing TDN anymore after the first round. That would be the first big change. Gives them more flexibility. I mean, really, in terms of what they want to do if they obtain one more additional, high day 2 pick, or even a low second round pick is still pretty high for day 2, considering it's 2 and 3. So, I mean, it gives them, I think, more flexibility of what they want to do in the first round. We sort of talked about the mock drafts of getting trapped into the idea of taking Trevor Penning, over, best player available probably makes them more likely to take whoever the best player available is. But I don't know if it changes what they do at the top too drastically.
Yeah, I think in terms of what it does for the first round, I think at that point, if you're trading down, you are looking at one of the offensive guards, Kenyon Green, Zion Johnson.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at that kind of second batch of receivers potentially. Like I said, Treylon Burks seems to kind of be in that range now. You could maybe get one of the corners, maybe Booth or Kaiir Elam. And then really, I love this safety class, man. I really do. I think Daxton Hill, Jaquan Brisker are two guys that I would love to see in this defense and really kind of open things up for Derwin and Nasir Adderley and give them insurance. So not saying that like trading down, you would take a safety at like pick number 24. But if you're trading down past 25 and, Jaquan Brisker or Daxton Hill are kind of like the best players on the board there, I think that could be a possibility. But what it does in the second round, that's really where I think you could get the right tackle of the future. And, I know a lot of people kind of think that Abraham Lucas is going to be in the third round. I think I would be pretty comfortable taking him in the second, to be honest with everybody. And I think he is that safe level player. Second round pick also could get them an edge rusher potentially, maybe not Ebiketie, but maybe kind of that other third tier edge rusher. So like Alex said, I think it gives them a lot of flexibility for sure.
I also think we talked about Ajabo a little bit. I think if you were to trade down to like 24, 25, you get a second round pick in that process, then that probably makes taking him more likely because then they can get someone in the second round who can play this year.
Yeah, no, that'd be pretty good. I think if they do trade down that they would go defense. Like if they stay put, I feel like it's wide receiver or Penning. If they trade back, I actually think they could go defense and then maybe find, the right tackle in the second round or something.
Yeah, so I mean, I was looking at the trade chart and kind of messing around on Pro Football Focus after I did that video with Ike Ekwonu taking him. But, I think for us to get a second round pick in return, I think the window would start with the Cardinals at 23, if I'm understanding the math correctly. But anything after that, I think would be good. Maybe the Steelers are trying to trade up 3 spots and get a certain quarterback. I think that really would only net the Chargers a third round pick.
Yeah.
But I think even that would be very beneficial for the Chargers.
Yeah, you have the trade back 3 spots with the Steelers. You get a third. Obviously, there's extra stuff in there too. 1 spot with the Saints, you could get a 4th. 15 spots with the Lions, you get 66 and 97. And the Lions have the 34th overall pick too. So I could see them wanting to go get their quarterback or something. Chargers trade back, and the Lions still pick at 34, so they do still have their second round pick. Kansas City Chiefs, you can get the 50th overall pick, trading back with them to 29. I don't know if the Chiefs would do that. I don't know if the Chargers would do that, but it is possible.
Yeah, obviously we know that like helping division opponents out, right? But like if it's mutually beneficial and I can get 29 and 50 for 17, I think I would do that in a heartbeat.
I don't know if I want to give the Chiefs Jameson Williams.
No, if Jameson Williams is on the board, you're taking him.
Yeah, yeah. I guess, yeah, I think the trade down option is kind of like we said earlier. If all of those guys are off the board, then maybe let the Chiefs have a little Treylon Burks, I guess. But I would hesitate before trading.
No, don't do that.
I know that's what I'm saying. I would definitely hesitate before trading with the Chiefs for any purposes.
No, I can't watch that happen. Please don't let Burks go to the Chiefs. I can't watch that happen to me twice a year. Oh my god.
That's like me watching the Chiefs have Creed Humphrey for the rest of my life. So.
Yeah, that would be Tyler Humphrey.
Freaking Packers, man. It was right there for you. It was right there. And you took the freaking worst center prospect. So kind of in that same vein we were talking about, James C. Asked if we could see a safety being taken before the Chargers in this draft, or before the corner in this draft.
Like by the Chargers?
Yeah, by the Chargers.
Yeah, I could see that. It depends on who's there, obviously, but I think you can work with, again, Daxton Hill more than you can one of these corners. It might be like Elam or something. Like, I think like if the Elam and Hill are on the board, I think they'd go Hill. I guess this is my answer.
Yeah,
that's funny. You and Craig at the same time. Craig just said trade back, draft Hill, go off heavy for the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the Jackson signing kind of makes it more likely that they take a safety in a corner in the first round. But yeah, I mean, I still think Booth and McDuffie and all those guys are great prospects, though. So I mean, I don't think it's necessarily like one is significantly better than the other in terms of the positional options there.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like in the first round, I think you're probably looking at more of a corner instead of a safety. But man, if you're like in the third round and you want one of those safeties, or if you trade back in this instance and get a second round pick and Jalen Petre's there or something like that, I could absolutely see the Chargers taking one of those players. And they do have the Nasir Adderley thing to consider. Obviously, they have Gilman and Webb, but Adderley's a free agent after next year. And if you're giving Derwin a massive extension, maybe you don't have the money to sign Nasir Adderley to an extension as well. So it is something to consider for sure. All right, we'll do this one last super chat question, and then we'll head out from Christian Hernandez. Devontae Wyatt from Georgia compared to Chris Jones with interior pass rush. Let's get him.
I'm curious what the RAS score difference is between those two guys. I'd imagine Wyatt's certainly on the higher end. I don't know about Chris Jones, but I mean, they are very disruptive players. Like maybe he is. I don't really study Chris Jones, but to me, I don't see Jones as a like hold at the point of attack and strong, like Jordan Davis type. I see him more like a Wyatt, shoot the gap, be explosive, wreak havoc sort of guy. So I guess I could see that. But I didn't watch Chris Jones in college for sure, so I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it. I mean, they still kind of do need that pass rushing DT after they got Austin Johnson and Sebastian Joseph Day, so definitely need some beef there unless you want to rely on Jerry Tillery. So wouldn't hate that, and would kind of make sense with the first round pick. And we've talked about the value being more than a 2-down player having pass rush value, and that definitely is kind of in the Wyatt Davis debate if you're talking about that for the Chargers.
Yeah, like I think Devontae Wyatt is, I mean, I have him graded higher than Jordan Davis. I know people kind of hated that, but I really like Devontae Wyatt. I'm not taking him at 17 overall. I'm not doing it. It's the same kind of thing for me with Jordan Davis. Like, if you're asking me, can I take a receiver to take the top off or a defensive tackle to pair with my other 3 defensive tackles? Like, I'm going to take the receiver. Same thing with a corner. And I would even take Penning over Wyatt because at least from like a positional versus value standpoint, like at least I get an offensive tackle. So I think a lot would have to happen for me to be comfortable with taking Devontae Wyatt at 17. If it happens through a trade back, you trade back with the Cardinals or the Cowboys and you take Wyatt at 23, 24, then sure, I'll be a little bit more on board. But it's the same kind of thing with Jordan Davis. I'm not taking a defensive tackle with a top 20 pick. I just can't do that.
Really random question, because someone also brought up Travis Jones. He's at like 66 now on TDN's board. Any idea what happened?
He tested like a freak at the combine.
No, he went backwards though. He's lower.
He went backwards. Oh,
yeah, I think he was like
on PFFs. He's like 28.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's also just like small fluctuations that happen after the combine. And I don't know if they're like super notable because we'll be like, oh, this guy was a 3rd round guy. Now he's a 4th. Did anything happen? No. Like, and now all these guys are doing their pro days and they'll all run, 4.24s, I assume. So, that's just kind of going to be the case with these smaller fluctuations. But I don't think anything happened to Travis Jones.
No, if anything, I feel like after the combine, he should have moved up. But I mean, I love Travis Jones. He was my DT1, and I think he's a great player, and he could certainly sneak into the first round. But again, with the positional versatility, like that, after you get to 25, teams generally take a shot on pass rushers, receivers, corners, because they know that the drop off is just so drastic. We need that for quarterbacks as well. So, like, if you're the Buffalo Bills, right, at 20, what are they, 27, 28? Or no, they're earlier than that. They're 20s, whatever. If you're the Buffalo Bills at 26 and you're looking at Travis Jones or Christian Watson or Kaiser Elam, like, you're going to take the receiver or the corner. You're not taking the defensive tackle. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well. I know Craig is on board the Travis Jones hype as well, but it's just the positional value these teams look at. Like, you can find a defensive tackle later who can at least do like similar things. Like, the drop off between premium positions and like their second, third round picks is just generally so drastic. That's why, the Saints last year, you take a shot on Peyton Turner as opposed to, something else, because Peyton Turner is a toolsy edge rusher. So, that back half of the first round, it's going to be guys like Boye Mafe, Arnold Ebiketie, Kaiser Elam, all these corners, all these edge rushers, just because of positional value.
Absolutely. Oops.
All right. So that's going to do it for us today. We are going to go live again tomorrow. We'll do our safety episode. Really a sneaky good class. This safety class is a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of all of these guys, including the late round players. So this is a really good group. I can't wait to cover it. Tyler, Alex, thanks for joining me today. All of you guys, thanks for tuning in. After you are done watching, please go subscribe to the channel and turn those notifications on, and we'll have a lot of good content over the next month, really focusing in on the draft. So I hope all of you have a good rest of your Saturday. We'll see you guys tomorrow.